So here we are again, my man. We
Uh,
came here. We were both in a kind of a fucked up spot that
mood,
day.
yeah,
We were in some kind of funk,
yeah.
but we ended up sitting around having a good chat. And I think both of us left that day feeling like, yeah, that was exactly what was supposed to happen. And here we are
Here
for
we are.
round two to figure it out. Yeah, my man. Looking forward to it. So, how early on did you know you had the soul of the poet and the skills of a poet? Were those separate, or did that kind of just go hand in hand?
Um, well, I don't think I really thought of them as separate, and I don't really think that I thought of them, to be honest. I think that I thought of something that I wanted to express, and I thought of the exercise of freestyling as meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, that's giving myself too much credit. I was not thinking about that either. I was thinking about nothing. I was just enjoying it because when you're young and you fall in love with something, you fall in love with it for no mental reasons other than the experience of doing it. But in retrospect, when I thought about it, it was meditative because when I was freestyling, I couldn't focus on anything else but what the next rhyme was. And
Yeah.
so that put me right into the moment. And I think being in the moment was something that I desperately needed at that time and I'm still trying to find now.
So that was your path to flow, was actually getting into verse and getting into a place where obviously nothing is available to you if you're thinking about what you previously said or thinking about it's only available in the present moment when you're playing music or when you're freestyling and when you're speaking in that way. Like you start thinking about shit, it all evaporates. So it's that kind of external pressure that drives you into the deep now.
Yeah. And you can't create from clutter. You can only create from space. If you have too many things already in the space, nothing will arise out of the space and you'll never be surprised. So you can't think about what you just said. You have to empty it out and then something else will sometimes surprise you. That was my favorite.
Oh,
when I
that's the
was
best, right?
freestyling and like, yeah, there's something that comes out that I did not know I was going to say until it literally exited my mouth.
Right.
So everyone else is like, oh, and I'm like, oh, but I don't do that, you know? But it's the way that I was feeling. And
And how old were you when you started freestyling?
I was 13, but I was goofy, man. It wasn't like I took it seriously at all. It was really like a joke at the
Was it
beginning.
more like hip hop style, or did you know this kind of spoken word genre at that point and were kind of steering it that way?
No, so it was all hip hop. Spoken word was not even a glimmer in my eye yet.
Yeah.
What I will say is that when I was 15, I went to something called the Young Writers Retreat. And it was something that I think UCLA put on, where they got a bunch of kids from high schools all around LA. And you were like, I guess you got a scholarship or something like that to do it. You had to apply, if I remember correctly. Anyway, so then we would all congregate. And that was like basically a creative writing retreat. And it was maybe a 2-day thing that they held in Lake Arrowhead. And I was rapping at the time and not interested in creative writing per se, but I was interested in creative writing, just being creative in my writing. And I thought it would be a fun opportunity. So I went, and there was a guy that they brought in, and I don't remember his name offhand, but he was a professional poet, and he led like some sort of a workshop with us. And I remember being like, wow, okay, I didn't even know you could do that for a living. And I didn't even have an interest in doing that for a living. It was just an acknowledgement that something like that even existed because I really didn't know that it did before that moment. So when I got into poetry years later, it felt like it was coming full circle from that moment.
That's interesting. I remember as a writer, I just had that interest to steer shit into the deep waters. I remember in like a fourth grade or fifth grade writing assignment, it was just write about anything you want. And I wrote about this guy who took his sled dogs to this snowy tundra. And he was riding out on his sled so he could die in peace by himself in the snow and like let his sled dogs go back. And the fucking teacher reads this, immediately calls my parents and like, you really shouldn't be doing Aubrey's homework for him, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, no, he came up with this. And like, why would someone in 5th grade talk about a guy taking his sled out into the, and I was talking about the crunch of the snow on the thing.
Do you remember what brought that about for you?
No, I don't. And I think it was just this kind of natural inclination to explore like the deep waters. You know, like I just recall that. And then I recall the skill at communicating just steadily increasing. But I remember that urge for the deep, you know, like acts of heroism, acts of love, like acts of sacrifice, acts of, and, you know, I think that's probably something that's somewhat universal, but I think some of us are just more maybe finely tuned to that. You know, we like drive ourselves into into those areas to see what that feels like. You know, and maybe that is the idea to me of the poet's soul. It's just someone who's willing to see the deep, dark, and steer right the fuck into it.
Right. Sometimes it's a choice, and then other times probably the choice is made for us.
Totally.
You know, so it's interesting that you don't, I mean, I remember almost nothing from 4th grade. I have a horrible memory, which I blame on being in the present moment, but that's not the reality of it. And it could have been weed, it could have been something else, but it's not, it doesn't exist. But I can't, you know, people tell me shit I did in high school, and I'm like, really? Like I'm listening to someone else's story. So I don't remember 4th grade, but it's interesting that you don't remember where that came from, you know, to explore that story. But then ultimately what that story is about is death, right?
Yeah.
And probably coming to terms with that.
Right. And making it a conscious choice rather than the haphazard way that, you know, the universe can carry that out. You know, and I think that was the interesting idea I was playing with, like someone who knows that they're going to die, but doing it on their terms.
Right.
You know, how would that look like? Okay, go out in the snow, cut the dogs loose, you know, and let the cold take you. What a fucking
That's
weird
a really
kid.
good image, actually.
Yeah,
Cut the dogs loose, you know?
Right. Yeah. So that's, you know, that's one of those kind of first moments. And then, of course, the torture of girls then brought out my next stage of poetry. Because I literally I never got the girl I liked, ever, not once. I was completely over till I was like 22.
Okay.
And so, and
You're
everyone.
making up for lost time.
Yeah. And then I started to figure a few things out. But I would literally, I wasn't myself. What I realize now is I wasn't myself. I was an overly pursuing, overly nice. They could recognize the falsehood in my pursuits.
Yeah.
They could recognize me coming to them, I love you so much, blah, 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 which was bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, because really I was just kind of interested, but I was trying to play this other role. And then, of course, the rejection I felt the real pain of that. And then the pain of that rejection drove me to kind of phase 2 of the poetry. So for you, like, first it's all fun. And then when was like phase 2 of the poems where shit started to get like a little bit more real?
Well, I was a very serious hip hop artist, at least in my own mind, you know? And I definitely, I mean, the best moment of my life literally was when I was 15 or 16, and I ended up sneaking into a club with, you know, my friends, and I battled this dude on stage.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, it was straight out of a movie, and just, you know, crushed him, and everybody went crazy, and I just never felt more alive. And I knew that that's what I wanted to pursue for the rest of my life. And then when I was 19 years old, I wound up at the Poetry Lounge, which is in Los Angeles. It's still the biggest open mic in the country. It's been going for like 17 years or something like that, where they get 350 people every Tuesday night who just pile into this room to listen to people come and put up work. So it's like church without religion, and that particular community became a family to me. And I was doing my raps a cappella, and it just kind of took on a life of its own. We ended up winning the National Poetry Slam Championships in 2004. I was on HBO's Def Poetry Jam, and so I guess naturally the flow of life was moving me in that direction, but it took a while for me to recognize it and then actually pursue it consciously, and to even acknowledge that I was a poet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing to acknowledge at this point. It almost seems like even by saying the word, somehow you're bragging or something like that. Like it's such a lofty thing. It's like such a lofty thing in your own mind.
Yeah.
That even to own that thing, even if you're producing poems that people like, be like, well, poet, well, you know, I don't
It's
know.
such a
It's a weird thing, right?
weird thing to say at parties, you know?
Yeah.
Somebody's like, what do you do? And you're like, I'm a poet. And they're like, get the fuck out of here. You know, it's like saying you're a race car driver. It's like people are just
Yeah.
like, okay, bro, like, can you be any more douchey? You know, but so I used to not tell people. I would just be like, I'm a writer. And
Yeah.
then I would immediately start asking them questions,
Yeah.
which I'm usually pretty good at. If I want to like get the energy onto the other person, I just will ask something that's like meaningful to me, and it usually will like shift the conversation. But it took me a while to actually like be able to say it and to be okay with whatever the response was or what people even perceive poetry to be. You know, in comparison to what I think that I do and what it is that you do and what it is, you know, all the people that have inspired me have done and what it can be.
Yeah. What is poetry? What is a poet?
I think everyone is a poet. I actually believe that. And that's not like a tagline. I think that we don't have examples to look to in popular culture that will inspire people to find the poet within themselves. So I think a poet is somebody who's willing to express the things that are more meaningful to them, more moving to them, more vulnerable to them, thoughts and emotions that they have about themselves, about society, about the world, about humanity, about life and death, about love, about struggle, about pain, about joy, and then sharing that, being willing to actually share it with another human being and connect with them on that deeper level. Because I think that that actually creates empathy, and empathy is what everyone needs most right now.
Yeah.
You know, we're looking at everyone siloing off in their own little bubbles that feel most comfortable to them, and then we're looking at technology doing that for us in ways that we're not even conscious of. And I think poetry is a beautiful art form that connects people. So I would say you're a poet if you believe you're a poet, and you're a poet if you write something and intend it to be a poem and then share it with somebody else.
Yeah. You know, and I've seen this in action. I've been in a couple of your poetry workshops, which are some of the most transformative practices that I've ever been able to witness.
Thanks.
We did one on the summit ship with a bunch of strangers, and then we did one at On It with a bunch of friends. And
Yeah.
we saw a bunch of MMA champions and fighters and people, and they were not only creating their own spoken word poetry, but it was fucking dope.
Yeah, really dope.
Like, and that's the surprising thing. People who've never written before,
Totally.
you know, will captivate a room just from their vulnerability. Maybe they're choked up while they're reading it. They certainly don't have the ability to perform it at 100, but that raw expression of their truth, of them just bearing open their heart and saying, this thing hurt, this thing felt good, you know, and we all can identify with that. And then that therein lies the poetry. You know, it's almost like the words can get in the way of the poem.
Totally.
Like the rhyme can get in the way of the poem in some cases, and sometimes it can accentuate it.
Right.
You know, sometimes it can help them slide into the ideas and tickle the mind as the heart's kind of like warming up as well. But other times, if you focus too much on the art of it, you might lose that raw expression, which is really where the power lies. I mean, there is not a dry eye in the motherfucking house,
Yeah.
you know, when these people are reading their stuff, and oftentimes when you're reading your stuff. And I think that's the beauty of it. I think too often people judge the artifice of it. You know, they judge like, oh, what's the rhyme scheme? Oh, how clever are the words and how clever are the metaphors? Like, you just get up there, express your truth. It's like someone giving it on the dance floor or someone singing their heart out. You know, it doesn't. If their pitch can be a little off, but if their heart is fully in it,
That's right.
you know, people will go, "Wow, you know, that was amazing."
Yeah, people ask me how I write my poetry, and I always just pay attention to the things that matter to me. That's how I do it. I mean, it's really not rocket science. I just pay attention to the things that actually resonate when I'm out in life, and then I just document those things. So when I'm doing a workshop, I try to provide people with the same experience through that particular platform, where I will share, you know, in a way that's very vulnerable, but from a place of strength. And then I will create environment that's safe and even celebratory for other people to share their stories. And then I just ask them to choose something that matters to them. And when they really think about it and they have the mirror of me first going, they'll find that story in their life that they still need to get some air out of the tire from, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then when they're willing to write from that place, the poem will write itself.
Yeah.
And then when they're willing to share from that place, they're getting up and giving that story away with an open heart and an open mind, no matter how afraid they are, is so courageous for everyone else in the room. And even if other people don't have that particular story, they see themselves in that person, and it provides healing for everyone, including me.
Yeah, and I think that that key component, you know, one of the brilliance of your workshops is before people get up, you get people fired up.
Yeah.
You know them.
Yeah.
You love them.
Yeah.
This is your friend. It could be a
Yeah.
total stranger. This is
Yeah.
your friend. This is your family.
Yeah.
Getting up. And everybody gives this rousing applause and these cheers. And it's just that extra courage
Yeah.
to go out and be vulnerable. Because I think we've had the opposite example. You know, we've had that time where we're, you know, dancing our heart out and someone goes, oh, what are you doing?
Totally.
You know, or had that moment where we sing and someone's like, oh, that's gross. Or had written something and be like, oh, that's lame.
Yeah.
You know? And then that'll cause this constriction, and that constriction is like this straitjacket that we're wearing the whole time. So that just even the ability to pull that off, have support from your community, and then it really does bond the people, you know, who are there with them. Like when you see somebody, there's nothing that bonds like vulnerability. There's nothing that bonds like the armor. You want to get close to anybody.
Yeah.
Take off all your fucking armor.
Exactly.
You know, show what's in your heart. And then let them embrace you and be like, I see you. That's
Yeah.
fucking amazing.
And, you know, in the workshop, you know, I'll create that environment, and it's a tight environment so people feel safe and held within that space.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't even need that space, because if you go out into the world and you're willing to be vulnerable from a place of strength and somebody doesn't respond well, they're probably a fucking asshole. And you probably don't need to hang out with them anymore.
Totally.
I mean, it's really as simple as that. So you gain information
Yeah.
by being open and honest, by how people respond to you and what they're actually capable of. And, you know, there's that saying, I don't know if I'm even getting it right because I just thought of this right now, but it's the don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Is that it?
Sounds right.
Is that right? Don't let...
I like it.
Yeah, I think, and what it basically means is like, don't let your idea of perfection be the enemy of doing something that's good. Well, in these workshops, it's almost the opposite. Like, don't let good be the enemy of great. It's not about being good.
Mm-hmm.
If you do it, it's great.
Yeah, totally.
And if everyone
100%.
actually like invests in that, you can just raise the energy in a room to a place where it's transformative, like genuinely transformative, and can be a metamorphosis for someone like evolving in real time, for letting go of something that they've held on to for years. There's nothing fucking whacker than like our shadow emotions that we're scared to acknowledge because we don't think that people will accept them, so we don't accept ourselves. And I'm talking to myself too. But like, it's time for us to like own those things, speak them out into the world, love ourselves through them so we can actually release them and move on and be more in reality, not in our projections of reality from some past that's unresolved.
Fuck yeah. Because why else are we here?
Exactly.
Are we here to just hide in the shadows and protect ourselves from the vulnerability and never get too happy, never get too sad, placate ourselves with mediocrity all the time? Fuck no.
It's boring.
It's boring.
Yeah.
We're not going to finish this thing and be like, man, really glad I played it safe.
Right.
Good thing.
We gotta let the dogs go, bro.
Yeah,
We're on
man.
the tundra.
Let's fucking roam. Let's go. Let's go. Fuck.
Yeah, man.
You know, and that it's worth it. It's worth it. Like, I came to you, you know, and I'm pretty public about this open relationship. When I saw you last time, I was in a low. I was in a heart-wrenching low. You know, but subsequently, I've been in sky-piercing highs and also heart-wrenching lows. And, like, I'll fucking take that any day. I'll take that. You know what I don't like? Is those years I can't remember because I was just worried about the future. I was just worried about what I was going to become. Am I going to make it? Am I going to do? fuck those years. Like
Right.
these ones count. Yeah. Like down on my knees, vomiting pain. That sucks. But like heart open, head up, screaming hoka hey to the sky because I
Yeah.
feel so in love and feel so good. Like, all right, let's do it.
And you'll be able to also relate to people that are in all of those places that you visited because you've been there. So whatever that pain is that you've been feeling, that's going to be the thing that'll allow you to connect to someone else that could, like, through sharing, alchemize their life.
Yeah.
Just even that, just even them feeling the fact that they know by your presence that you've been through that. I actually believe that energy, depending upon someone's life experience, I don't know, like we were even talking earlier about like how what you do in a poetry reading can wind up getting in the way, the rhymes or I feel that for myself. I think I'm the vehicle for my work, but I'm also the obstacle to my work, my ego, my need for validation, all of that type of stuff. So I think that if I ever got to a place where I could actually let all of that go, like integrate it and then let it go, then I could speak and it would just reconfigure people's cellular structures.
Yeah.
I know people could do that to me. You ever meet somebody who's like a legit shaman, not like just wearing beads, and like fucking, they just say hello to you and you're like, you feel it.
Yeah, Don Miguel Ruiz gives you a hug, author of the 4 Agreements, Mastery of Love, Toltec Art of Life and Death. He gives you a hug and you're like, what? What the fuck was that? You hug me like you're my grandpa and I haven't seen you my whole life. And it's a different kind of vibe that they can transmute. But I don't think you give yourself enough credit because I think there is something that moves through your work, undoubtedly. And it's a beautiful thing to witness. It's a beautiful thing to behold. And I think it's why those people who've been, in your presence for this have had such powerful experiences.
Thank you, man. Appreciate
and it's
it.
in you've had lyrics in songs that'll translate. You have, videos on YouTube, but in person, then that's also there is that little magical kind of thing.
Yeah,
like you said, that little Don Miguel Ruiz thing. Like you could take a video of me and him hugging, and it ain't gonna be
right. You might not feel that in the same way.
Exactly the same, But I think that is you can always kind of sense it, and I think human beings are tuned to that because we all want to shed our own ego and our own self. That's where all the fear comes from, and then all the love comes from the universal.
Exactly.
So as soon as we can shed that and become part of the universal, man, life is heaven. It's just fucking heaven.
Well said.
Sometimes you got to go through hell. So I'm going to start. So I think the plan is let's share a little poetry.
Okay.
And then let's talk about how people at home, because we've been building up this workshop. Not a lot of people are going to be able to actually go to one of your workshops. So how people at home can start the poetic process for themselves.
Okay, cool. Yeah, for sure.
All right, so I'm going to share this one. This one was actually born of some of the struggles that I was mentioning to you.
Is this so? This is recent?
This is recent, yeah. I just posted this
Amazing.
a week ago. The woman you want most is a unicorn. You will never tame her, your ring will never contain her, your name will never claim her. She is wild as the moon, shimmering white, the ghost of your mind sky's night. You could try to forge a bridle made out of plastic credit and dollar bills. You can try to form a saddle secured by the thrusts of your cock or the seat of your children, and she may wear both bridle and saddle, but in her heart she is wild. So the only way to tame the unicorn, to set your inflamed heart at ease, is to become no longer a man, but the grass on which she grazes, the wind that rustles her hair, the ground on which she sleeps, the sun that warms her skin, and the hand of every cowboy she fancies for a dance. For none but the universe itself can tame a unicorn. So become the universe, and she will be yours.
That was beautiful.
Thank you, brother.
That's dope.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's...
How did that come to you? So what was the moment?
Well, that was the moment where in open relationship, right? Like you won't be able to be with the woman you want most at that point.
Hmm.
You know, I fucking love Whitney.
Right.
She's with another man, you know. Like, so how do I get out of that pain? You know, do I rely on the fact that she's wearing my ring? You know, do I rely on the fact that, you know, I'm financially responsible for this? Do I rely on the fact that, you know, maybe one day we're going to have kids and that's how I'll contain her and I'll control her and she'll be mine and I'll prove that she's mine and I can, you know, assure my ego, hey, ego, don't worry, she's yours because of all these reasons, X, Y, and Z. She's yours. I was like, no, that's not working.
Right.
That's a failure. She'll never be mine. She can't be mine. No human being can be yours, you know, only. So you have to expand the identification of self if I want her to be mine. She's wild. The world is hers. Like the world can contain her, the universe itself. So become the universe. Become that other guy. Become, you know, the house that she comes home to, the food, the drink, become all of that. And of course, she's mine. And then there's nothing to fear.
Yeah.
And that was my escape. That poem came to me in the heart of the darkness. And then that was my escape out to allow myself to change my point of identification, enlarge it to the universal, and then ease my suffering of the moment.
It reminds me of that. I think it's Atticus with the lover believer wild
Yeah.
thing. Is
Totally.
that Atticus?
I think that is Atticus.
Yeah. I first heard that and I was like, what the fuck, lover, believer, wild. Like, I was like, get the fuck out of here. And then I was like, no, he's right.
Yeah.
No, he's 100% right.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Any
true.
any attempts otherwise are just fooling yourself.
That's right.
It's just giving your ego a little bit of comfort, but at the end it's bullshit.
Yeah, and everybody, I mean, that's what's so beautiful about relationship. Any relationship, by the way, but it's, I think, most complicated in a love relationship. Or actually, I can't say that because I don't have kids yet, so it might be more complicated in a child relationship. I'm sure it's a case-by-case basis. But, you know, the dichotomy of having connection and freedom simultaneously. And that's really what it's about. No matter what the structure of your relationship is, it's still about connection and freedom.
Yeah.
How do you become attached to someone and remain unattached?
And how much deeper is the connection when there is freedom? How much deeper is it when it's a choice?
Because you can
Every
see the
day.
person.
Yeah.
If you have no freedom, then you become one thing in a way where you can't allow each other to continue to grow, and you can't see the person as separate from your own needs. And so, you know, there's something that one of my kind of spiritual teachers talks to me about, which is the difference of relating to reality through need rather than curiosity. And could you actually like come to every relationship that you were in with curiosity every single time of who is this person that I'm meeting now, even this person that you believe that you know so well, and that you love so much and that you would do anything for, even maybe give up your own life.
Yeah.
But how can you come to them with curiosity and with freedom? So, I mean, you're really living that, which I have a lot of respect for.
Best, man, doing my best. Yeah, but it is a beautiful process because it does get to the root of it. You know, it does get to the root of a lot of things, and certainly reignited a lot of that kind of poetic impulse, the ability to alchemize my own suffering and put it out into something else that can be positive. And that's, you know, like when that poem takes shape, not only does it heal me, but then I know that exists now.
Right.
And the fact that exists, and whether I just tell that to one person who's moved just right at the right time when they need it, or whether I publish it, then all of a sudden my pain has a purpose beyond myself.
Right, exactly.
And when your pain has a purpose beyond yourself, then you activate that kind of, I'm kind of a fucking hero. You know,
Well,
I'm kind of a badass. You know, I'm helping others.
Yes, and you become the universe
Yeah.
in doing that. So you actually will become your poem in that way.
Yeah.
My mom used to say you don't really know how people will be affected by something that you say to them, because You know, often you'll be in a conversation and you say something offhand and then you just walk away, and maybe they don't even understand it at the time, or vice versa. Someone says something to you and you don't understand it at the time, but it's a seed that's been planted, and the seed is of transformation. And so I would say that's not only for conversation, but it's for creation, it's for art. You know, and there's no way to quantify what that poem will wind up doing for people, or how it settles in their hearts, how it settles in their minds, how they actually might make a different decision in the world. I mean, that's like the highest goal, I guess, from my art. I don't have like a specific desire for someone to do anything in reality in a certain way, but I love if they actually do something in reality. That's the highest goal, is if somebody hears a piece of art and they actually go, you know what, like, I can hear this voice inside of me now a little bit stronger, and it's actually saying to do this, and this will be positive and constructive for me and the people that I love. That is like very humbling, and I'm very grateful for that. And there's no way, like I said, that you can actually say, this is quantifiable of what that poem did, but know that it does, and it has ripples, and your pain winds up being meaningful to other people in reality that way.
And that's the truth for all people.
Yeah.
You know, for everybody.
Exactly.
It's just, and don't get lost in the scale.
Right, exactly.
You know, don't get stressed about, you know, if you share that, it's only going to reach 20 people. And if, you know, and if you share it, it's going to reach, you know, these many thousand people. That doesn't matter.
The game never ends that way, because it could be millions. And
exactly.
A person would say, well, what about this other person who has 10 million? You know, who cares?
And it's just, that's just the resistance we use not to do it.
Exactly.
You know, and that impact, you know, it's all fractal. You know, you make that one impact on one person, cool. That's like making an impact on the universe. We're all little universes contained. Like, just don't stress about that shit. Just fucking put it out there. Good for yourself, good for one other person. Maybe just you getting that out there makes you a better fucking owner of your dog, so you go take your fucking dog for a walk.
Love these dogs.
and that's the benefit that anybody else gets. It's just like an extra fucking walk in the park and a scratch behind the ears and a frisbee. Fuck it.
That's
fine. Right. Like, good. You put at least some good out there, you know, and that'll make you feel good, ultimately. You ready to drop something?
Sure.
All right, let's drop something.
Okay. How do we talk about the problems without feeding them? If we ignore them, we most likely keep repeating them. If we explore them, we run the risk of reinforcing them. So how then do we get down to the source of them? Most people don't change. I mean, they won't change. I mean, they can change, but usually they don't change. I find it so strange. People just continue to repeat the same pattern like the consequences of them doesn't matter, but is that true? What if God put a magnifying glass over you, over me, over everything we see, and this world is an experiment for your soul to survive separated from our infinite whole? I wouldn't know joy unless I knew pain. I'm looking for a new way to say the same old thing. They say the same old thing and then expect a different response. It's hard to explain. I guess your heart wants what it wants. I used to think there was a right and wrong. Now I know that I was wrong, so I write. Darkness is a form of light. I used to think that I was mad at you. I was really mad at me, but in retrospect, that's how it had to be. I used to think I knew some shit. Now I know I don't know shit. But at least I know enough shit to know I don't know shit. Shit. I'm a hitchhiking ghost trying to find his way home. Every mistake that I make, I put inside of a poem. She wants to change her man, but she's focused on her man. She should focus on herself, rearrange her mental health. He wants to change his girl, but he's focused on his girl. He should focus on himself, rearrange his mental health. We want to change the world, but we're focused on the world. We should focus on ourselves. Why do I repeat myself? Everybody's superpower doubles as their kryptonite. I think too much to sleep at night, but that's what makes me rip the mic. If you're not inspired by life, you're not paying attention. Our world is beautiful beyond all comprehension, but we rarely look around.
We're so used to looking down, it can feel heavy when we even lift our heads up off the ground. We get lost inside of crowds. We forget that we belong, that our voices come together in this human song. It's more than merely right or wrong. It's learning how to get along, but it gets darkest right before the dawn. You are the rays emanating from the sun, because faith is always blind. And the stories that we share become the mirror of our times. Our journeys intertwine, so the reflection is divine. I can see myself inside your eyes. We recognize the truth behind the disguise. Our struggles are the same. We have to celebrate the joy and celebrate the pain. We have to elevate the energy and rise to the task, because change comes slow, but it happens fast. And since this moment doesn't last, our future is the past, but the answer has to first be asked. I call upon the dreamers and the poets and the prophets and the seekers. Let your music reach from out the speakers. Let it echo from the bleachers, from the artists to the teachers, from the painters to the preachers. There is no one that will lead us. We, the people, are the leaders. And I don't want to wait for someone else to change the world or pawn it off on the next generation of boys and girls. There is no one that is coming, because everyone is here. We can be found in the crowd from the sounds of a cheer. So when it brings us all together, what will you have to say? When it brings us all together and the music starts to play? When it brings us all together, how will you own today? Because life is beautiful, and it's up to us to keep it that way.
Fuck yes. Fuck yes. That was fucking incredible, man.
Thanks, man.
Fuck. It's so good.
Thanks.
It's so good. Man. That just makes me happy.
Thank you.
Makes me happy you fucking exist. Honestly. You know, like, it's so dope. I haven't heard that one before either, too.
Yeah.
Unreleased for now, or is it you
It's
doing it on stage, or?
So it's interesting. I just did a collaboration with the Life is Beautiful Festival, which they have in downtown Vegas. It's incredible. Have you been to this?
Mm-mm.
It's an awesome festival, and you know, it's one of the bigger ones. But the thing that I love most about it is that they transform Vegas. It's like 16 square blocks in Vegas, and so you watch downtown Vegas become a space of art. So they're bringing the art into the city.
Hell yeah. Rather
than people like having to go to a pasture like far away to experience art. It's actually like in Vegas, and I think it raises the energy in Vegas because of that. So we did a collaboration on like I would say second half of that piece, and then I put together 2 other pieces at the beginning. I like kind of remixing my work, so I have so many pieces at this point, but over the years, some remain important to me, and some actually drift away as I change, or my priorities change, or my focus changes. So at that point, I start to chop the pieces up, and then I can kind of like intertwine them, and they wind up taking on new meaning. So that was actually 3 pieces that I stuck together.
Fuck.
And it winds up being something that then is, it's creative even after the creation.
Yeah.
Which is fun for me.
How is just from the artifice of it standpoint, how is the memorization for you? Like, is that something that you've had to work for, or is that something that you've just trained yourself over and over?
You know, I think that people specifically for me, because they'll come see me do an hour or something, and I'll tell stories in between and do a lot of crowd participation, but there is a lot of memorization. And because there's nothing else there, like music or, you know, it's just me on stage by myself, they're like specifically focused on how does he possibly hold all of that in his head. But the thing is if you got any rapper out there, they know so many rhymes in their heads. I mean, when, you know, anybody, they go on stage, sometimes they'll do 2.5 hours of concert stuff. The only difference is if you just basically like condensed all of the lyrics without any musical
Music,
breaks.
yeah.
They could just start rapping. I mean, Nas could start rapping and he wouldn't stop for 3 hours. I mean, he has that much. Jay-Z.
Nas, if you're listening, fucking
shout out to Nas.
Let's hear it, Nas. I want the 3-hour uninterrupted
exactly.
flow version.
I would love to hear that, man.
Hell yeah.
I would. I would. I would love to hear some of my favorite rappers just do their lyrics.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be amazing. Actually, this is a side story, but when I was a teenager, I took mushrooms. And I listened to Nas Illmatic.
And all of a sudden, all the Aubrey Marcus podcast listeners just loved you even more.
Oh, really?
Right now.
All right. Hey. So I took shrooms and I was like at the house and I fucking got a boombox, and I put in Nas Illmatic and I literally just blasted it and I put my head right up in between the speakers and I just lied there and I listened to the whole album. And at the end of it, I was like, oh, I understand. Nas is God. Like, that was my realization, was that Nas was God, and he had come back to give all of his wisdom. And I still believe that to this day.
Well, in a way, you're true, because we're all God.
Yeah.
We're all God, living many different lives and many different experiences and sharing that wisdom. And if he got out of the way of himself, then he for sure was God. Just like any of us, when we get out of our way, we are God.
That album is transformative, man. It's
Yeah.
one of the most amazing hip hop albums I've ever heard to this day. I mean, it stands up to anything.
Yeah. Well, that's sounds like an interesting experiment to do, where everybody can confirm that hypothesis on their own. But yeah, that's fucking rad, man.
So that's how I memorize.
That's how you memorize. So that makes sense, man. It makes sense. So let's talk about, all right, so people who are inspired by, hearing this poetry, don't think that they're poets, don't think that they have it in them, obviously, if you get a chance to go to one of your workshops, do that. Or get a chance to go to another workshop, because the environment is cultivated and you'll be really surprised at what you're able to write. But if someone's just at home right now, and they're inspired from this, like, what are the steps that you would give somebody to start to unlock that inner poet and just to start doing it? Start doing it.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is just to do it, to not like talk about it, but to be about it. And make the decision that this is something that you're going to do. And then the second thing is not need to be not afraid of it. To be okay if it's making you uncomfortable, that's a part of the process. And
almost steer towards the discomfort.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then choose something that's meaningful and moving to you. It's really not that complicated. Like, if art comes from passion, so if you don't know what it is that you want to say, really just pay attention to what it is that you're passionate about. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know what you're passionate about in this moment, think of your past and think of a moment that inspired passion in you. It doesn't have to be bad. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be anything. It just has to be something that actually changed who you are. Think of a moment that changed who you are, that is moving and meaningful to you, and then write about that. And have the intention of it being a poem. And if you have the intention of it being a poem, it's going to be a poem. And who the fuck is going to tell you any different? Seriously, it's like,
right.
Nobody can teach you how to use your voice. All that they can do is provide you a space to explore it. So the more that you explore your voice, the more you'll become confident in it. And how do you start to do that? Is by choosing something that is moving and meaningful, and then setting aside the time and the space. And then once you've created something, let's say you take a half an hour to write and you just put on the clock, then you have to choose someone to share it with.
Yeah.
And that could be anyone in your life. It could be somebody you know well. It could be somebody that you want to know better.
Because otherwise it's just journaling.
Yeah, you have to actually share it with someone.
That's where the magic and the alchemy actually happens.
Yeah.
That's where your pain becomes someone else's, compassion and empathy is where you connect.
That's right.
So I think that's a key part. I think
Exactly.
That's the final thing. And also, one thing I've noticed is people get lost in the rhymes, unless add the rhymes way later. That's like if you're trying to learn how to do jujitsu and you're worried about the fucking some 10th planet crazy electric chair from truck kind of final finishes where you don't even know basic guard position and
I
basic
definitely
mount position.
didn't understand.
Yeah,
anything you
exactly.
said to
Like
me right
some
now.
fancy ass position, like trying to get someone in the twister before like back mount. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about the rhymes. Some rhymes come fucking dope.
Right.
Cool. Leave them. Don't like avoid them. But like just get the message out there. Like some of the most successful poets, like Atticus, who's very successful now. And sometimes it's just a very simple sentiment on a page. Or one of my favorite Sufi poets is Hafiz. And some of the things, nothing he says rhymes. Hardly anything that Atticus says rhymes. But he'll say something like, it's a lonely thing protecting a breakable heart. And he'll just put that on a white page, and you look at it and you'll go, fuck.
Yeah.
Fuck. That was a poem.
When it's true, it's true.
When it's true. And it's just, all right, so that's a poem, and that was short as shit.
Right.
And that's the beauty of it, is just let it be what it wants to be. Sometimes it'll be longer, sometimes it'll be shorter, and then share that thing, and then there you go.
That's it.
You're on your way. Now, I've also, like, in my past, I like the idea of the warrior blending with the poet. And I think, to me, they're similar, but they represent different sides of the spectrum. To me, the warrior is kind of the courage to go into the darkness to find where the poems live. Like that's how those things go together. It's that willingness to steer yourself into those deep, dark waters where the monsters live, and the electric eels and those fucking things with the teeth, and then the eyeball that's dangling over the top, and you can't see it because it's pitch black, and then it illuminates and it's right there. Like, go in there into those vulnerable, deep, dark places. Like, that takes the warrior's courage, ultimately. And then when you're there, then it's the poet's soul that allows you to take that lesson, take that image, and then bring that out, bring it up to the surface, up to the light, where you dispel the monsters and realize they're not real, because we're all just made of love. And love can't be marred, it can't be dented, it can't be broken, it can't be hurt, it can't be anything. We are the divine expression living separately, So you bring it up to the light and you get to realize that. But it takes fucking courage to go into the deep. And to me, that was always the moniker of the warrior poet. And that was like something that I put up, like, all right, that's what my goal is to be willing to go into the dark. And then once I'm there, feel it. Not with armor, because a warrior if you're a warrior alone, you'll come all armored. You'll go down to the deep and you'll be in a fucking nuclear submarine. You'll be like, fuck you, motherfuckers. I got my warheads. I got everything pressurized. You ain't touching me. But a warrior poet goes down there, takes off all his armor, feels what he feels, recognizes his invulnerability, comes back to the surface, shares that with the world, and then makes an impact.
Well said. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, so what's next for you, my brother? What's this? Like, to me, it just boggles my mind that you're not a household name for the entire world, for
Thanks,
one.
Man.
But I know there's always, there's momentum, there's stuff happening. What's kind of on the horizon? What are you working on?
I'm really the worst person to ask that question to, because I don't remember. I really don't remember. I was just literally in an event right now, and the dude, he was like, man, I love your stuff. I was like, oh, thank you. And he goes, I haven't seen you in 2 years. What have you been up to? And I was like, fucking 2 years, bro. I was like, I don't know how to answer that question. I barely even, can answer the question of what's happening in the next week. So I promise you, what I said to him, I was like, well, I'm about to go do this awesome dude's podcast. And he was like, really? And I was like, yeah. Because that was where I was. It was coming here and doing that. I mean, we have so many things that we're working on.
Yeah.
But I don't even know what I'm allowed to talk about. I know that if anybody's interested in getting at any of my materials or whatever, you could just look me up. I mean, it's pretty easy. in-q.com. And then I'm INQ Life on all of the Instagram.
And please do that. Yeah. That's like time well spent, everybody, for sure.
I mean, we do shows all over the country and the world. And I'm pretty consistently booked. And then we do our own public shows too. And
and those are always selling out. We do them in like LA and New York and San Fran, different places like that. Then we make a bunch of videos. So one of the things I was really proud of is we made a video about gun violence, and it has over 45 million views now.
Wow.
And we're actually going to have, through the Brady campaign, it's going to start being played on all of the Viacom television stations, that they're actually going to put up portions of the poem to help further that message. So that was something that was really meaningful to me, and I wrote about it because it was something that was bothering me, and I needed to express how I was thinking and feeling about it. And
yeah, I did a really emotional solo podcast about that.
Yeah.
You know, and really just trying to, for me, it's about trying to focus on healing the people.
Yeah.
You know, like healing the hearts that are behind these, you know, behind all of these acts. Like,
Yeah.
we got a wounded people crisis in the world, and it's coming out, and the symptoms are manifesting in a million different ways. But, you know, people feel unseen. People feel unconnected to their community. They feel alone. They feel isolated. They feel confused. They're on all kinds of medications that aren't helping the root cause. They're just masking the symptoms. They're just duct taping over a festering wound, you know, and spray painting it skin color. I'm saying, like, no, I'm good. Oh, it's starting to stink? All right, here's some air freshener. Let's fucking put some cologne over the duct tape that's spray painted like skin and add some human scented cologne on there. And let's all fucking pretend that we're well. Yeah. You know, and that's not a good solution.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, there's a lot of pain out there. There really is. And yet I actually have hope. I really do. I have so much hope, man. I feel like actually things are getting better. I really believe that. I just think that we're aware of all of the negative shit now in a way that we've never been able to be, you know, in the past. I mean, the internet has provided this space for human consciousness. And you imagine like how that's going to be in the next 10 years. I mean, eventually everyone in the world is going to be connected in some way. And that will create like this hive mind consciousness. And how will that transform us, and how will we evolve?
Well, hopefully it breaks down all of these fucking small identities where people are trying to carve out me versus them.
Yeah.
I mean, everything really ultimately is silly at this point. All
Right.
the fucking national borders, all of the different religious and tribal and racial identities and gender identities. Like, what? We're all gods and goddesses, and life itself just expressing itself in totality, you know. And I think the quicker we can realize that, the quicker we can all look around and be like, hey, this game is awesome. This game board called Earth, it's fucking rad. Human beings, they're dope. Let's try and like keep this going for a little while longer. Let's let more souls and more children come through and face the hardships and the challenges and the triumphs and love. Like, let's keep this available. You know, and I'll just look around. What do we got to do? Well, let's fucking definitely move some nuclear power plants away from areas where fucking tidal waves hit them.
Yeah, like, there's a lot of really logical shit.
Let's do some logical shit together. You know, like let's help mom out here, and then help people out. Get ready for the next big thing that's coming. But we gotta have some of that connectedness. You know, we gotta heal some of this trauma, and we got to wake people up from this automatic motion that they have. You know?
Well, I think that, you know, to your point, that's the solution is, you know, if there is a lot of pain out there, which we all admit that there is, we have to stop being so afraid of it. You know, I think the only way to release pain is to feel through it, which kind of brings us back to, you know, art and what it can be, which is medicine.
Yeah,
for people to feel through their pain and release it. And I think everywhere you look, people are just very, very afraid of their, you know, sadness, their anger, their shame, you know, and it's a part of being human, you know.
No doubt.
You're never going to get rid of your ego, man. Your ego is a part of your humanity, so you have to accept it so that you can let I don't know, let those things go, but also just integrate them into who you are so
And
that
realize
they
they're
don't
not
run
that
you.
bad.
Right, they're not.
You know, it's like if you really think there's a monster under your bed and you're hiding under the
Right.
fucking covers and you're constantly clutching and shivering and leaving the nightlight on, because just go look under the bed, man.
Right.
Go, like, it's going to be scary for the first second. And then you shine that flashlight, like, oh, it's just carpet under there.
Right, for
You
sure.
know, I'm good. And that ultimately is the other side of all of these fears, you know, that we recognize who we really are. We recognize the strength of who we are when we actually shine a light on them. But it takes that moment of courage to actually, all right, I'm going to look under the fucking bed. I'm terrified of this thing. Okay, just shadows under there. You know, and that may take a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years to actually illuminate what's underneath the bed. But we got to do that, or else it's going to play itself out. You know, and all of these fears,
Right.
it's just
Externally.
and we're gonna find ways to drive us towards that. All right, we're scared of our health, we're gonna drive ourselves to miss health. We're scared of rejection, we're gonna find people who constantly reject us. We're
Right.
scared, you know, we'll find ways to activate those until we release them.
You will always find the evidence for what you choose to believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's this proof of love game that we're all playing with each other constantly. You know, we have this feeling that we're not worthy of love. So every motherfucker out there has got to prove it.
Right.
Here's my case against you for not loving me. You did
Right.
this, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. Therefore, it proves you don't love me. You know, like we're all playing that stupid ass game. But where does that come from? Not feeling worthy of love. Where does that come from? You know, go down there and find out. Go fucking mining. Go on an expedition. Figure that shit out.
For sure.
For sure. How we doing on batteries?
No problem.
No problem? Do you want to wrap this fucking party up? You got another rhyme that you can
Sure,
you
yeah.
can give us to bring this thing home?
What do you want to hear subject wise? Do you have anything?
Man, anything that wants to come through.
Okay, I got a good one.
Anything that wants to come through, let's fucking do it.
I used to save my clothes for special occasions that never came. There in the closet they would hang, lonely in the dark waiting for me to change. But I was comfortable wearing my same things, my same shirts and my same jeans. My newer stuff was for the right time, a right scene. I wouldn't waste it on a normal day of living. It was more for an event or a premiere, or the house party of the year, where everyone was there so they'd see me in my fresh gear, rocking just the right look so I could meet the right girl and get her back to my house and get her clothes on my floor. But the tags were still on the collars. Couple seasons went by, my shit was out of style. So now I'm back in the aisle buying more stuff. I take it back to my closet and hang it all up. I wonder what they do when I'm not around. What if they come alive, climb down, make believe they're me and run around, acting like they own the town, mixing outfits and floating like ghosts off of the ground? I mean, they probably want to be used. If they could choose, your shoes would try to break out of the box too. Kiss the concrete and learn to walk too. After all, that's what shoes were made to do, and even shoes want to feel purposeful. What if chairs want to hold up our weight? What if tables like when we gather around them to celebrate? What if beds want to carry our dreams? And we're taking them for granted because they're not living things. Then again, I've taken many living things for granted too. I could pass you on the street and I would barely notice you, because if I noticed you, I'd see how beautiful you truly are. And yet the closer that we get, the more I feel the distance from afar. Late night, lying in the grass, counting shooting stars. One day, we'll all buy our vacation homes on Mars, with Nike gravity boots and Tom Ford spacesuits that come in camouflage. But as for now, we wander overpriced department stores. What am I looking for inside the malls? Last week, I found a black hole beneath a pile of clothes at Ross. I fell in and got lost. Woke up 4 hours later in a discount suit from Boss. I keep it hanging on the hanger, hanging out with moths. Just another mediocre metaphor collecting moss. Tomorrow isn't promised to any of us. We're living in a dream even when we're waking up.
Besides, it's not about us. Just think of your stuff. 'Cause every day should be special occasion enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Ah, fuck, man. That's a beautiful idea. You know, we all have, and that's shit, man. That's a lot of what my book's talking about, right? Like my book's talking about all this potentiality we have, all these things we know we can be that are just right there. They're things that are available to us, that we're just waiting for some other time. We're pushing, oh, my happiness will wait for that time. Oh, I'll be joyful and full of love at that time. Oh, when my relationship gets here, okay, yeah, then I'll be there. Or when my money gets right. Man, there's just the now. Just wear the fucking clothes. Do the things. You know, one of the saddest stories was my mom, you know, who was a professional tennis player and made it, you know, made some good money for a while at a time, gave one of my cousins, who was very poor, gave her a fur coat that she'd been given from Europe, and one of the things, like a badass fur coat. And it was too small for her then. And my cousin never wore it once, because there was never a chance that it was good enough to wear it.
Right.
Until eventually, exactly as you said.
Right.
You know, the fucking moths ate it, and the
That's
things
it.
ate it, and they never actually got to use it. Like, it was too special, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the literal example, but the metaphorical example is all the things that we're capable of being that we don't actually let out, you know, because we're waiting that poetry that we're hanging on the shelf, that song that we're hanging on the shelf, that dance, that asking that person out, that asking for the raise, that, you know, just shining is who we are. Like, fuck it.
Yeah.
You know, wear the fur coat to the park, lay it on the grass, and use it as a fucking picnic mat.
Yeah.
Like, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
You know, just enjoy it.
Yeah. And it, you know, I mean, I'm writing as a reminder to myself.
100%.
I mean, that's
100%.
You know,
We all do
that's
that.
a poem I think of to remind myself to live now and to take advantage of this moment and make this the special occasion.
Yeah. I remember I was on a lot of mushrooms recently.
I love how I was a teenager and you were like recently.
No, recently, yeah. I was on a lot of mushrooms.
You're like right now, bro.
Right now. And we were hanging with a couple friends, and one of my friends, her butt got really itchy at the time, and I was just laughing at the hilarity of all humans and how important we take things and how like special we take things and blah, blah, and I was howling with laughter, you know, and it was just a really beautiful day where I was just laughing at myself and laughing at people, and in my bag, in my satchel, I wonder if I have it here. I have this jar of something that's probably like one of my most prized possessions. Here, I'll let you smell this. So this is like sacred piri piri oil in a salve from the jungle, and I've kept it, you know, like really. It's like in my bag, and it's like one of the most special things I have.
What is it?
It's this grass that grows in Peru called piri piri, and it has this amazing smell.
Okay.
And to me, it smells like starlight.
No, it's really nice. Yeah.
It's like a crazy fucking smell. I know that doesn't make any sense.
No,
to
it makes
anybody,
sense.
But,
Yeah.
but anyway, so she's and then we're on mushroom, and her butt's itchy, and this is a salve, right? And I was like, oh, I have something for that. And she's like, really? I can rub that on my butt? And I go, yeah. She's like, well, what is it? I was like, it's just the most precious thing I own.
It smells like starlight.
Yeah, it's the sacred. And we just started howling. You know, we started howling because at that moment, her butt was itchy.
Did it work?
Of course. Yeah, fuck yeah. You know, rub the sacred on it. Of course it works.
Right.
You know, and there's never a moment that I've regretted, you know, the fact that, yeah, all right, maybe that, you know, you don't put this on your butt, you know, normally in waking life. But at that point, with an itchy butt, fucking put the sacred on it.
Hey, man.
Put the fucking sacred on it. Who cares?
Who cares?
There's more sacred out there.
Agreed.
In one way, shape, or form. Fucking live. Go for it.
Yeah.
Man.
Thank you
been
for
a
having
pleasure,
me,
brother.
man. Yeah. It's always great to chat
That's
with
awesome,
you,
man.
Appreciate you, bro.
Absolutely. So you mentioned it, in-q.com,
Yeah.
NQ Life on YouTube.
Yeah, INQ Life on YouTube.
And if you get a chance to see this man, do it. Catch him. Catch him now when you can. Catch him later. I don't know. All the time.
I'm out there.
You're out there. Cool. Thank you so much, everybody. Love you guys.
Much love.
Peace.